It was a crisp winter morning in the small town of Meadowridge, where life moved at a pace as gentle as the snowflakes that often blanketed its streets. The town was one of those places where everyone seemed to know everyone else, or at least thought they did. Among the quaint rows of shops lining the main street stood Johnson's Grocery, a family-owned store that had been a fixture in Meadowridge for decades. Its shelves brimmed with essentials, and its old bell above the door chimed each time a customer walked in, a sound as familiar to the townsfolk as their own heartbeat. Mr. Raymond, a man whose name carried a certain weight in the town, pushed the door open that morning. The bell chimed, and the shopkeeper, Mrs. Johnson, glanced up from her ledger with a polite smile. Mr. Raymond was a figure of quiet intrigue in Meadowridge. He was a retired entrepreneur whose wealth, though substantial, seemed almost out of place in this humble town. He was tall and impeccably dressed, with a sharpness in his gaze that hinted at a mind always at work. Despite his wealth, he was not one for extravagance or showy displays. He lived in a modest but well-maintained house on the edge of town, largely keeping to himself. He made his usual rounds, picking up a carton of eggs, some bread, and a bag of coffee beans. As he moved through the aisles, his presence exuded calm authority. Customers gave him friendly nods, and he returned the gesture, though he rarely stopped for small talk. He was a man who seemed content to exist on the periphery, observing more than participating. Just as he approached the counter to pay, a sudden commotion erupted near the back of the store. Mrs. Johnson's stern voice cut through the gentle hum of the store's usual activity. "Young lady, stop right there," she called out. All eyes turned toward the source of the disturbance. Near the pet supplies aisle stood a girl, no older than 10, clutching a small packet of dog treats to her chest. She froze under the weight of Mrs. Johnson's glare, her wide eyes darting around the store as if seeking an escape route. Her clothes were threadbare, a size too small, and poorly suited for the biting cold outside. Her face was pale, framed by unkempt hair that looked as though it hadn't seen a brush in days. I am sorry," the girl stammered, her voice barely audible. "I was just—" "You were just stealing, is what you were doing," Mrs. Johnson interrupted, stepping out from behind the counter with her arms crossed. The other customers watched in stunned silence, their curiosity tinged with discomfort. "Put that down and explain yourself." The girl hesitated, her fingers trembling as she clutched the packet tighter. It was then that Mr. Raymond stepped forward. His voice, though calm, carried an unmistakable authority. "Excuse me, Mrs. Johnson," he said. "Let's not jump to conclusions." Mrs. Johnson turned to him, her expression softening slightly. "Mr. Raymond, this child was attempting to steal from my store. I caught her red-handed. And yet, she hasn't run away," he pointed out, his sharp eyes fixed on the girl. "Perhaps we should hear her out before making accusations." The girl looked up at him, her eyes filling with tears. She seemed caught between fear and desperation, and Mr. Raymond's steady demeanor offered her a sliver of solace. He crouched down to her level, his voice gentler now. "What's your name?" he asked. "Mia," she replied, barely above a whisper. "Mia," he said, as though testing the name. "Why don't you tell us what's going on?" Her gaze flickered to the packet of dog treats in her hands. "It's not for me," she said, her words tumbling out in a rush. "I swear, I wasn't going to keep it. It's for someone else." Mrs. Johnson raised an eyebrow, her skepticism evident. "Someone else? A likely story." But Mr. Raymond held up a hand, signaling her to stop. "Go on, Mia," he said. The girl hesitated, her lower lip quivering. "There's a dog," she finally said. "He's been hurt. I found him by the old train tracks. He's all alone, and he doesn't have anything to eat. I just wanted to help him." The store fell silent. Even the most hardened skeptics in the room felt a pang of sympathy at her words. It wasn't hard to picture the stray dog, cold and hungry, waiting for someone to show him kindness. Mr. Raymond studied her for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then, without a word, he stood and pulled out his wallet. He handed a crisp $20 bill to Mrs. Johnson. "This should cover the cost of the treats," he said. "And whatever else she might need for the dog." Mrs. Johnson hesitated, then took the money with a reluctant nod. "I suppose that's fine," she muttered. Mia's eyes widened in astonishment. You're paying for it?" she asked, her voice shaky. "Yes," Mr. Raymond said simply. "But on one condition, I want to see this dog you're talking about." The girl blinked, unsure how to respond. "Oh, okay," she said finally. "I can take you to him." "Good," he said. Turning to Mrs. Johnson, he added, "And perhaps next time, we can approach these situations with a bit more compassion." With that, he gestured for Mia to lead the way. The other customers watched in stunned silence as the unlikely pair exited the store. Outside, the winter wind bit at their faces, but neither seemed to notice. Mia clutched the packet of dog treats like a lifeline, while Mr. Raymond followed close behind, his mind already racing with questions. Who was this girl? Why was she, a child, left to care for an injured animal on her own? And why did he feel an inexplicable pull to help her? As they walked through the snowy streets, the town seemed to fade into the background. For Mr. Raymond, this was no longer an ordinary day. It was the beginning of something far greater, a journey that would challenge everything he thought he knew about himself, his community, and the true meaning of compassion. Mr. Raymond walked alongside Mia through the icy streets, the cold biting at his skin, though he hardly noticed. His thoughts churned, heavy with questions. What kind of world left a child to fend for an injured animal? What kind of town, his town, had failed to notice or intervene? The snow crunched beneath their feet as Mia clutched the packet of dog treats close to her chest, her small frame trembling, not just from the cold, but perhaps from the relief of not being cast aside. Mia didn't speak at first, and Mr. Raymond didn't push her. He knew that silence could often say more than words, and he needed to understand her without frightening her away. The streets grew quieter as they left the bustling main road and turned onto a narrow lane that seemed forgotten by time. The houses here were smaller, some in disrepair, their sagging roofs and peeling paint a testament to lives lived on the edge of poverty. It was a stark contrast to the polished streets and manicured lawns that Mr. Raymond was accustomed to. "Here," Mia said suddenly, stopping in front of a dilapidated house with a sagging porch. The windows were fogged over, the shutters barely hanging on. It looked like the kind of place that had given up on hope long ago. She hesitated, glancing back at Mr. Raymond with wide, uncertain eyes. "My grandma doesn't like strangers." "I'm not here to bother her," Mr. Raymond said gently. "I just want to make sure you're okay." Mia seemed to weigh his words carefully before nodding and pushing open the creaky front door. The inside of the house was as cold as the air outside, the faint smell of mildew mingling with the scent of old wood. A single light bulb flickered weakly in the hallway, casting long shadows on the walls. Mr. Raymond's heart clenched as he took in the bare living room, no holiday decorations, no signs of warmth or comfort, just a worn couch and a threadbare rug. "Grandma's in her room," Mia whispered, as if speaking too loudly might disturb the fragile peace of the house. "She doesn't come out much anymore." "Where's the dog?" Mr. Raymond asked, his voice low. Mia gestured toward the back door. "He's in the shed. I didn't want him to get too cold, but we don't have much to keep him warm." Before following her outside, Mr. Raymond set down the bag of groceries he had brought from the store, a silent offering to the emptiness that surrounded him. He wasn't sure if it would help, but it felt like the least he could do. The shed was little more than a ramshackle structure made of old planks and rusted nails. Mia opened the door slowly, revealing a small, makeshift space lined with torn blankets. In the corner, a skinny dog lay curled up, its fur matted and its body trembling. At the sound of the door, the dog lifted its head weakly, its eyes dull but watchful. A faint wag of its tail showed that it recognized Mia. "This is Buddy," Mia said softly, crouching down and holding out the packet of treats. The dog perked up slightly, sniffing the air. She opened the bag and placed a treat in her palm, holding it out to him. Buddy hesitated before licking it off her hand, his movements slow and labored. Mr. Raymond knelt beside her, studying the dog with a critical eye. It was clear Buddy was in bad shape, his ribs protruded through his thin coat, and one of his back legs looked swollen and out of place. He needed medical attention, and soon. "Mia," Mr. Raymond said, his voice gentle, "how long has Buddy been here?" "About 2 weeks," she replied, not looking up. "I found him by the train tracks. He couldn't walk, so I carried him home. I've been giving him scraps from what we have, but it's not enough." "And your grandmother? Does she know about him?" Mia nodded. "She said we can't afford to keep him, but I couldn't leave him out there. He wouldn't have made it." The weight of her words hit Mr. Raymond like a punch to the chest. This child, barely more than a girl, had taken on a responsibility far beyond her years because no one else would. She had risked everything, her safety, her limited resources, to save a life that others had deemed expendable. Mr. Raymond reached out and placed a hand on Mia's shoulder. "You did the right thing, Mia. You saved him." Her eyes welled with tears, but she blinked them away quickly, as if afraid to show weakness. "But I can't help him anymore," she said. "I don't know what to do." Mr. Raymond stood, his resolve hardening. "You're not alone in this anymore," he said. "We'll get Buddy the help he needs." The next hour was a whirlwind of activity. Mr. Raymond called the local veterinarian, a kindly woman named Dr. Ellis, who agreed to meet them at her clinic despite the late hour. Together, they carefully loaded Buddy into Mr. Raymond's car, wrapping him in blankets to keep him warm. Mia sat in the back seat with the dog's head resting on her lap, her small hand stroking his fur as she whispered reassurances. At the clinic, Dr. Ellis examined Buddy thoroughly. She confirmed that his leg was broken and that he was severely malnourished, but she was optimistic about his chances of recovery with proper care. As she worked, Mr. Raymond couldn't help but notice the way Mia's face lit up with hope. It was as though the weight of the world had been lifted from her shoulders, if only for a moment. When they returned to Mia's house later that night, Mr. Raymond didn't leave immediately. Instead, he asked to meet her grandmother. Mia hesitated but eventually led him to a small bedroom where an elderly woman lay in bed, her face pale and lined with worry. She looked up as they entered, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "My name is Raymond," he said. "I met Mia at the store today. I wanted to make sure she and Buddy were okay." Her grandmother sighed, her expression softening. "She's a good girl," she said. "She's always trying to fix things, even when we have so little ourselves." As they spoke, Mr. Raymond learned more about the family's struggles. Mia's parents had died in a car accident 3 years earlier, leaving her in her grandmother's care. The older woman's health had deteriorated since then, making it difficult for her to work or provide for them. They had been surviving on a small pension and the occasional kindness of neighbors, though those moments of generosity were few and far between. Mr. Raymond listened intently, his heart aching for this small, broken family. When he finally left that night, he couldn't shake the feeling that he had been brought into their lives for a reason. He didn't know what that reason was yet, but he was determined to find out. As he drove home through the snowy streets, his mind raced with possibilities. He thought about the resources at his disposal, the influence he wielded in the town. For years, he had kept to himself, content to live a quiet life away from the chaos of the world. But now, for the first time in a long time, he felt a spark of purpose. By the time he pulled into his driveway, he had made up his mind. This wasn't just about Buddy or even Mia. It was about something bigger, a chance to remind himself and others of the power of compassion, the strength of community, and the profound impact of even the smallest acts of kindness. And so, as the snow continued to fall outside, Mr. Raymond sat down at his kitchen table and began to make plans. He didn't know exactly where this journey would lead, but he knew one thing for certain: he wasn't going to walk away. Not this time. The following morning, Mr. Raymond awoke with a sense of resolve he hadn't felt in years. The events of the previous day played over in his mind like a reel, and with every passing moment, his determination solidified. Mia and her grandmother's plight, coupled with Buddy's condition, had stirred something deep within him. For too long, he had lived as an observer, detached from the struggles of those around him. But this, he knew, was his moment to act. After a quick breakfast, Mr. Raymond made a list. He jotted down names of people and places that could help, a network he had built over years of business and quiet philanthropy. His connections, dormant for so long, would finally be put to use. He began making calls, starting with Dr. Ellis, the veterinarian who had examined Buddy the previous night. "Dr. Ellis," he said warmly when she answered. "Thank you for your help with Buddy yesterday. I wanted to ask, what's the next step for his recovery?" Dr. Ellis explained that Buddy would need several weeks of care, including proper nutrition, treatment for his leg, and follow-up visits. "It won't be cheap," she added cautiously, knowing the family's financial situation. "That won't be an issue," Mr. Raymond replied without hesitation. "I'll cover all the costs. Please make sure he gets everything he needs." Dr. Ellis paused, clearly moved by his offer. "Thank you, Mr. Raymond. That's incredibly generous. Buddy's a lucky dog to have someone like you looking out for him." He hung up the phone, feeling a sense of satisfaction. But he knew this was only the beginning. Next, he reached out to a local contractor he had worked with years ago. The man, James Carter, was known for his skill and his heart. "James," Mr. Raymond began, "I've got a project for you, and it's a bit different from the usual." He explained the situation at Mia's house, the crumbling structure, the lack of insulation, the general state of disrepair. "They need help, and they need it fast. I'll cover the expenses, but I need a team to get in there and make it livable." James didn't hesitate. "Consider it done. I'll bring my crew over this afternoon to assess the place. We'll get started right away." With that taken care of, Mr. Raymond turned his attention to the grocery store. He knew Mrs. Johnson wasn't a bad person, she was simply overwhelmed, like so many small business owners in the town. Still, her initial reaction to Mia's shoplifting had left a bitter taste in his mouth. He decided to pay her a visit. The bell above the door chimed as he entered Johnson's grocery. Mrs. Johnson looked up from her ledger, her expression a mixture of curiosity and wariness. "Mr. Raymond," she said, setting down her pen. "What brings you back so soon?" "I wanted to talk," he said, his tone calm but firm. "About Mia." Mrs. Johnson sighed and gestured for him to sit. "I didn't mean to be harsh," she admitted. "It's just, things are tough for everyone right now. Sometimes it's hard to see past your own struggles." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words. "I get that, but we're better than this, aren't we? We're a community. If we don't look out for each other, who will?" She glanced down, her cheeks coloring with shame. "You're right. I should have handled it differently." "Then let's do something about it," Mr. Raymond said. "I'm putting together a fund to help families like Mia's, people who've fallen through the cracks. I'd like your store to be part of it. Maybe we can set up a donation bin, or offer a discount program for those in need." Mrs. Johnson's face brightened at the idea. "I'd love that. It's the least I can do." By the time he left the store, a plan was in motion. Word spread quickly through the town about Mr. Raymond's efforts. People who had once turned a blind eye to Mia's struggles began to step forward, offering whatever they could. Some donated clothes and blankets, others brought food or offered their time to help repair the house. The transformation was slow but steady, like the first rays of sunlight breaking through a storm. Meanwhile, Mr. Raymond made regular visits to Mia's house. He brought groceries, checked on Buddy's progress, and spent time talking with Mia and her grandmother. The bond between them grew stronger with each passing day. Mia, who had been so guarded at first, began to open up, sharing stories about her parents and her dreams of becoming a veterinarian one day. "You'd be great at it," Mr. Raymond told her during one of their conversations. "You've already got the heart for it." Mia beamed at his words, a spark of hope lighting up her eyes. It was a look that reminded him of himself as a young man, full of ambition but uncertain of the path ahead. As the weeks went by, the house underwent a remarkable transformation. James and his crew worked tirelessly, repairing the roof, installing new windows, and even adding a fresh coat of paint. Inside, they replaced the old flooring, fixed the heating system, and added sturdy furniture. What had once been a crumbling shell was now a warm, welcoming home. The changes extended beyond the house. The community, inspired by Mr. Raymond's example, began to rally around those in need. Neighbors who had once kept to themselves started reaching out, offering support and companionship. The town, once fractured by apathy, was beginning to heal. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Not everyone was quick to embrace the changes. Some questioned Mr. Raymond's motives, accusing him of trying to play the hero. Others resisted the idea of helping freeloaders, as they called families like Mia's. Mr. Raymond faced these challenges head-on, using his calm demeanor and sharp wit to disarm critics and remind them of their shared humanity. One evening, as he sat with Mia and her grandmother in their newly renovated living room, he reflected on how much had changed. Buddy lay at their feet, his tail wagging contentedly. The dog had gained weight and was now able to walk on his healed leg, thanks to Dr. Ellis's care. "You've done so much for us," Mia's grandmother said, her voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how we'll ever repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Mr. Raymond replied. "Just pay it forward. When you're in a position to help someone else, do it. That's all I ask." Mia looked up at him, her eyes shining with determination. "I will," she promised. "I'll help others, just like you helped us." In that moment, Mr. Raymond felt a profound sense of fulfillment. This wasn't about money or recognition, it was about making a difference, one life at a time. And in helping Mia and her family, he had found a renewed sense of purpose. As he left their house that night, the snow began to fall again, blanketing the town in a soft, peaceful hush. For the first time in years, Mr. Raymond felt truly at home in Meadowridge. It wasn't the place that had changed, it was the people. And it had all started with a little girl, a stray dog, and a single act of kindness. Over the next few weeks, Mr. Raymond watched the small town of Meadowridge transform in ways he hadn't thought possible. The story of Mia, her grandmother, and Buddy had rippled through the community like a stone cast into a still pond. It began with whispers, people sharing the tale of the wealthy, reclusive man who had stepped in to help a struggling family and their injured stray dog. But soon, the whispers became conversations, and the conversations sparked action. The house repairs were completed faster than expected, thanks to James Carter and his dedicated crew. But more surprising was how the neighbors had rallied around Mia's family. People who had once turned a blind eye now stepped up to offer whatever they could. Mrs. Abernathy, an elderly woman who lived 2 doors down, began bringing over hot meals, saying it gave her joy to cook for someone else again. Mr. Thompson, a retired carpenter, handcrafted a sturdy kennel for Buddy, insisting that the dog deserved a proper place of his own. Even the kids in the neighborhood got involved, collecting toys and blankets for Buddy and helping Mia clean up the backyard so Buddy would have space to play. One snowy afternoon, Mia and Buddy were outside in the freshly cleared yard. Buddy, now healthy and strong, bounded through the snow with an energy that was a stark contrast to the frail, trembling dog Mr. Raymond had first seen. Mia laughed as she tossed a stick for him to fetch, her cheeks flushed pink from the cold. From the porch, Mr. Raymond watched, a small smile playing on his lips. It was moments like these that made everything worth it. But not everyone was thrilled about the changes. A small but vocal group in Meadoridge began to grumble about the sudden focus on charity. At the local diner, where gossip flowed as freely as the coffee, some patrons questioned Mr. Raymond's motives. "It's easy for him," one man sneered over his steaming cup. "He's got money to burn. What about the rest of us? We're struggling too." Others nodded in agreement. "Yeah, and now everyone's looking at us like we're the bad guys for not doing more. We've got our own families to take care of." The comments didn't go unnoticed. Mr. Raymond had heard the rumblings of discontent and decided to address them head-on. He knew that change, even positive change, often came with resistance. But he also knew that the heart of the issue wasn't malice, it was fear. Fear of scarcity, fear of being judged, fear of facing their own shortcomings. At the next town hall meeting, Mr. Raymond stood before the assembled crowd. The room was packed, a mix of curious onlookers, supporters, and skeptics. He took a deep breath and began. "I want to thank everyone who stepped up to help Mia and her family," he said, his voice calm but firm. "What we've accomplished together is proof of what this town can do when we come together. But I also know that some of you are feeling left out, maybe even resentful. And I understand that. Times are tough for everyone." He paused, letting his words sink in. The room was silent, all eyes on him. "But let me ask you this," he continued. "What kind of town do we want Meadoridge to be? Do we want to be the kind of place where we look out for each other, where no one falls through the cracks? Or do we want to be the kind of place where we turn a blind eye to suffering because it's easier? Because let me tell you, change doesn't happen by waiting for someone else to step up. It happens when each of us decides to be part of the solution." His words hung in the air, heavy with truth. Slowly, people began to nod. The grumblers fell silent, their complaints muted by the undeniable power of his message. After the meeting, people approached Mr. Raymond, some to thank him, others to apologize for their earlier skepticism. The tide was turning, and the town of Meadoridge was beginning to heal, not just for Mia's family, but for everyone. Meanwhile, Mia's life continued to change in ways she never imagined. With her grandmother's health stabilizing and their home now a warm and safe haven, Mia began to thrive. Her once shy demeanor was replaced by a quiet confidence. She started doing better in school, and her teachers took notice. One day, her science teacher, Mrs. Callahan, pulled her aside after class. "Mia, I hear you've been taking care of an injured dog," she said, her voice kind. "That's incredible. It shows a lot of compassion and responsibility." Mia blushed, unsure how to respond. "I want you to think about something," Mrs. Callahan continued. "There's a scholarship program for kids who are interested in veterinary medicine. It's competitive, but I think you'd be a great candidate. What do you say?" Mia's eyes widened. "Really? You think I could do that?" "I do," Mrs. Callahan said. "And I'll help you every step of the way." That evening, Mia excitedly shared the news with her grandmother and Mr. Raymond. Her grandmother's eyes filled with tears of pride, while Mr. Raymond gave her an encouraging smile. "You've got this, Mia," he said. "And I'll be here to support you however I can." Mia threw her arms around him in a rare display of affection. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." As the days turned into weeks, Mr. Raymond continued to find ways to help others in the community. He started a fund to assist struggling families, working with local businesses to provide food, clothing, and other necessities. The program wasn't just about giving, it was about empowering people to get back on their feet. But the biggest surprise came one snowy evening when Mr. Raymond received an unexpected visitor. Mia's grandmother, now stronger and more mobile, knocked on his door. In her hands, she held a faded photograph. "I found this while going through some old things," she said, handing it to him. "I thought you might want to see it." Mr. Raymond took the photo and stared at it in disbelief. It was a picture of himself as a young man, standing next to an older gentleman who looked strikingly familiar. "That's my late husband," she said, her voice trembling. "Years ago, he told me about a young entrepreneur he helped, loaned him some money when no one else would. He always said that man would do great things." Mr. Raymond felt a lump form in his throat. He had never forgotten the kindness of the man who had believed in him when no one else did. And now, all these years later, he had been given the chance to repay that kindness in ways he never imagined. "Thank you for sharing this with me," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "Your husband was a great man. And now I understand why I was meant to help your family." As she left, Mr. Raymond sat in silence, the photograph in his hands. The circle of life, he realized, was more interconnected than he had ever imagined. The kindness that had been shown to him had come full circle, bringing hope and healing to a new generation. And in that moment, he knew that this was only the beginning. The work of building a better world, one act of kindness at a time, was a journey he was ready to embrace for the rest of his life. The weeks that followed felt like a dream for Mia, her grandmother, and even Mr. Raymond. The once crumbling house now stood as a symbol of transformation, a home filled with warmth, hope, and newfound joy. Buddy, now fully recovered, had become the heart of their little family. He followed Mia everywhere, his tail wagging furiously as if he knew he owed his life to her. But life, as it often does, was not without its challenges. Though Mr. Raymond's efforts had ignited a spark of unity in the community, there were still lingering pockets of resistance. Some people viewed the changes with suspicion, clinging to old grudges and a reluctance to embrace what they saw as unnecessary charity. Others resented the attention Mr. Raymond was receiving, accusing him of using his wealth to play hero and win favor. Despite these murmurs, Mr. Raymond pressed on, determined to show that true change came from persistence, not perfection. He doubled down on his efforts, expanding the community fund to include educational initiatives, job training programs, and even support for local businesses. The ripple effect was undeniable. Families who had once struggled in silence began to find their footing, and the town slowly transformed into a place where people looked out for one another. One crisp morning, as the sun melted the frost off the windows, Mr. Raymond received an unexpected visitor. It was James Carter, the contractor who had led the renovation of Mia's house. James, a burly man with a gruff exterior, looked uncharacteristically nervous as he stood on Mr. Raymond's porch, holding a folder in his hands. "Morning, James," Mr. Raymond greeted him warmly. "What brings you by?" James cleared his throat and held out the folder. "I've been doing some thinking, Mr. Raymond. Watching what you've done for Mia and the rest of the town, it's made me realize something. We need more of this. More people like you. But we can't just rely on one person to make it happen." Intrigued, Mr. Raymond invited James inside and opened the folder. Inside were blueprints, plans for a community center, complete with classrooms, a food pantry, and even a small veterinary clinic. James explained that the center would serve as a hub for the town, providing resources and support to those in need while also fostering a sense of togetherness. "I know it's a big ask," James admitted, shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "But I think it could change everything. And I couldn't think of anyone better to help make it happen." Mr. Raymond studied the blueprints, his mind racing with possibilities. The idea was ambitious, but it was also exactly what Meadow needed. He nodded slowly, a smile spreading across his face. "Let's do it," he said. The announcement of the community center sent ripples through the town. While many were excited, there were still those who doubted the project's feasibility. Some questioned where the funding would come from, while others dismissed it as a pipe dream. But Mr. Raymond wasn't deterred. He knew that every great endeavor faced resistance, and he was prepared to see this one through. He reached out to his network, rallying support from friends, former colleagues, and even a few philanthropists who had been inspired by his story. Donations poured in, and before long, construction on the center began. The town watched in awe as the empty lot near the old train station transformed into a bustling worksite. Meanwhile, Mia found herself at the center of the excitement. With the encouragement of Mrs. Callahan and Mr. Raymond, she had begun studying for the veterinary scholarship, poring over books and volunteering at Dr. Ellis's clinic. She was a quick learner, and her natural compassion made her a favorite among the animals and their owners. One day, while helping Dr. Ellis with a particularly skittish stray cat, Mia confided her fears. "What if I'm not good enough?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Ellis smiled warmly. "Mia, you've already proven that you have what it takes. You've got the heart, the determination, and the kindness that this world needs more of. Don't let doubt hold you back." Mia nodded, though the knot in her stomach remained. She couldn't shake the feeling that her dreams were too big for someone like her, a girl who had once stolen dog treats because she had no other choice. As construction on the community center neared completion, Mr. Raymond decided to host a town gathering to celebrate. He wanted to thank everyone who had contributed, no matter how small their role. The gathering was held in the town square, under a canopy of twinkling lights. Tables were laden with food donated by local businesses, and laughter filled the air as neighbors came together to celebrate their shared achievements. Mr. Raymond took the stage, his heart swelling with pride as he looked out at the crowd. "This town has shown me something I'll never forget," he began. "That even in our darkest moments, there's light. Even when we think we're alone, we're not. Because we have each other. And that's what this community center is about. It's about hope, about unity, and about building a future where no one is left behind." The crowd erupted into applause, but Mr. Raymond wasn't finished. He gestured for Mia to join him on stage, much to her surprise. She hesitated, her cheeks flushing, but Buddy nudged her forward as if giving her courage. "This young lady," Mr. Raymond continued, placing a hand on Mia's shoulder, "is the reason we're all here tonight. Her courage and compassion reminded us what it means to truly care for one another. And I'm thrilled to announce that she's been accepted into the veterinary scholarship program." The crowd erupted again, their cheers echoing through the night. Tears streamed down Mia's face as she looked out at the sea of smiling faces. For the first time, she felt like she truly belonged. As the celebration continued, Mr. Raymond stepped back, content to watch from the sidelines. He thought about the long journey that had brought them all to this moment, a journey that had begun with a little girl, a stray dog, and a simple act of kindness. The challenges they had faced hadn't disappeared, but they no longer felt insurmountable. Together, they had proven that even the smallest gestures could spark a chain reaction of change. And as the stars shimmered above Meadowridge, Mr. Raymond felt a profound sense of gratitude. This was more than he had ever imagined, a legacy not of wealth, but of love, compassion, and community. It was a reminder that sometimes, the most extraordinary transformations began in the most ordinary places. The day of the grand opening of the Meadowridge Community Center dawned bright and clear, the sun cutting through the chill of early spring. The air buzzed with excitement as townspeople streamed toward the newly constructed building, its vibrant facade a beacon of hope and renewal. For weeks, the town had watched in awe as the empty lot near the old train station was transformed into a state-of-the-art facility. Now, it stood as a testament to what the community could achieve when they came together. Inside, every detail reflected the vision of unity and support that had driven its creation. The main hall was spacious and welcoming, with bright murals painted by local artists depicting scenes of life in Meadowridge, children playing in fields, farmers tending their crops, and the train station that had once been the town's heart. To one side was a fully stocked food pantry, shelves lined with donations from residents and local businesses. Adjacent to it, a classroom was set up with desks, books, and a projector, ready for workshops and educational programs. In the back corner, a small veterinary clinic had been equipped with supplies donated by Dr. Ellis and a nearby animal hospital. Mr. Raymond stood near the entrance, greeting people as they arrived. He was dressed in his usual understated style, but there was a lightness to his demeanor that hadn't been there before. This project, born from a chance encounter with a little girl in need, had changed him in ways he couldn't have imagined. As he shook hands and exchanged smiles, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had spent much of his life building wealth, but this, the act of giving back, had given him a purpose that money alone never could. Mia arrived with her grandmother and Buddy, who trotted alongside her, his tail wagging. She looked radiant, her confidence shining through in a way that was still new but unmistakable. The scholarship acceptance had been a turning point for her, and she had spent every spare moment preparing for her future. Today, though, she was here not as a student but as a symbol of what this community center represented, a second chance, a new beginning. The ceremony began with a speech from the mayor, a portly man with a booming voice who had once been one of Mr. Raymond's skeptics. Today, he declared, we celebrate not just the opening of a building but the revival of our town spirit. Meadowridge has always been a special place, but this center reminds us of who we truly are, a community that cares, that lifts each other up, and that never stops striving for better. The crowd erupted into applause, their cheers echoing through the hall. Mr. Raymond was invited to speak next, and as he stepped up to the podium, a hush fell over the room. He looked out at the sea of faces, young and old, familiar and new, and felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. This community center, he began, his voice steady and warm, isn't just my work. It's ours. Every single one of you contributed to this, whether through donations, time, or simply believing in the vision. And it all started with a little girl who reminded me what it means to care. He gestured toward Mia, who blushed deeply but smiled. Mia's courage and kindness sparked something in me, something I hadn't felt in years. She showed me that even the smallest actions can lead to the biggest changes. And it's that spirit, her spirit, that this center embodies. His words were met with thunderous applause, and as he stepped down, people surrounded him, offering their thanks and congratulations. But Mr. Raymond deflected the praise, directing it back toward the community that had made it all possible. As the day unfolded, the center came alive with activity. Families explored the classrooms, children ran through the halls, and neighbors mingled over coffee and pastries. In the veterinary clinic, Dr. Ellis held an impromptu Q&A session about pet care, with Mia by her side, eagerly soaking up every word. In the pantry, volunteers helped distribute food to those in need, their smiles genuine and warm. Everywhere Mr. Raymond looked, he saw connections being formed, barriers being broken, and hope being rekindled. But the day's most unexpected moment came in the afternoon, when a man in a worn suit approached Mr. Raymond. He introduced himself as Thomas Green, a journalist from a regional newspaper. "I've been following your story," he said, his tone respectful but curious. "What you've done here is remarkable. I'd love to write about it, to share it with a wider audience." Mr. Raymond hesitated. He had never sought recognition for his actions, and the idea of publicity made him uneasy. But then he thought about the broader impact such a story could have. If sharing what they had accomplished inspired other communities to follow suit, wouldn't that be worth it? After a moment, he nodded. "If it helps others see what's possible when we come together, then I'm happy to share our story." The article, published a week later, garnered attention far beyond Meadowridge. Letters and emails poured in from people across the state, and even the country, asking how they could replicate the model in their own towns. Donations to the community center increased, allowing them to expand their programs even further. And though Mr. Raymond remained humble about his role, it was clear that his actions had sparked a movement. For Mia, the community center became a second home. She continued to volunteer in the veterinary clinic, honing her skills and building her confidence. Her dream of becoming a veterinarian no longer felt distant, it felt inevitable. And as she worked, she often thought of what Mr. Raymond had said about paying it forward. She knew that one day, she would. As for Mr. Raymond, his journey didn't end with the community center. He continued to look for ways to help, whether by mentoring young entrepreneurs, supporting local schools, or simply lending a listening ear to those in need. He had learned that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars but in the impact one could have on others. And he was determined to leave a legacy that would endure long after he was gone. In the years that followed, Meadowridge flourished. The community center became a cornerstone of the town, a place where lives were changed and dreams were born. And though there were still challenges, the people of Meadowridge faced them together, their bond stronger than ever. One evening, as the sun set over the town, Mr. Raymond sat on a bench outside the community center, watching as Mia played with Buddy in the courtyard. Her laughter filled the air, a sound so pure and joyful that it brought tears to his eyes. He thought about how far they had all come, how a single moment of compassion had led to this, a thriving community, a hopeful future, and a legacy of love. And as the stars began to appear in the sky, he whispered a quiet thank you, to Mia, to the town, and to the life that had given him the chance to make a difference. For in the end, it wasn't about what he had given, but what he had gained, a sense of purpose, a connection to others, and a heart full of gratitude.